Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back once again to another Fallout 4 settlement build. Today we're going to be taking a look at the sheriff's office, and if you wanted to you could call it the police department, but since I have been going for a more western style, I have tried to stick with the sheriff theme. And this time around we're actually going to be using a couple more mods, so if you want to check those out they'll be down in the description. But I think the one you'll notice most is the OCDecorator, and this mod allows you to craft and then place down a lot of miscellaneous items that you would otherwise have to go out in the wasteland and scavenge on your own, and not to mention it makes them static. So now you don't have to worry about NPCs walking by and knocking them down. And I think most of us know that problem all too well. But overall, I gotta say, this is probably one of, if not my favorite out of the builds we've done so far, or at least the interior of it. But I must admit, I do still love the outside look of the hotel, or the gun store even, just a bit more than this one. But yeah guys, without further ado, let's go ahead and check this thing out. Alright guys, so now we'll go ahead and take a closer look at the outside of the build, and I think right off the bat you'll notice the huge sheriff sign up there at the top. And the thing about that was that I tried looking everywhere for something else I could use besides that, and I couldn't find hardly anything. I think the closest item I found was the Haymarket Mall sign, just because that had a little bit of a western feeling. But then again, there was the fact that it says it's a mall, and obviously this building isn't. So in the end, I did have to resort to using the light up letters, which, I don't know, it doesn't look bad, but I feel like if you lived here even for just a day, you would end up thinking, alright, we get it, it's a damn sheriff's office, enough with the light up signs. But in the end, I do feel like it balances out some of the other buildings, especially the clinic, since that was the first building where we started using these lights. And I think having a nice variety, especially having some others with the lights, really makes it feel like it's not out of place. And I just gotta remember not to use these everywhere, because I think that will get a bit repetitive. But you know, every once in a while, shouldn't be too bad, and I think it adds a very cool effect to it. So the more we can use that, the better. But yeah, up here we have a little bit of a, I guess you could call it a porch. And it basically has some more seating areas and whatnot. You can see over by the door, there's a little wanted poster, which you would post your bounties below. Then there's also this police sign here, which I just feel is fitting since this building is kind of a mixture between a sheriff's office and a police department. So yeah, in the end, you just kind of get the best of both worlds. And finally, over here to the far left, I tried to add some more style to the build, and you'll see this even more in the interior. But as for this little section, I tried to make it seem as if maybe someone was trying to reassemble or fix up their weapon, hence the toolkit weapon and the parts being there. And like most of our other builds, when you first walk through that front door, you're immediately greeted with this little lobby area, which is basically designated for, I guess, someone to come in and report a case or some kind of disturbance, and then whoever's working the front desk would then in turn, I guess, alert or radio to the deputy or even the sheriff himself to go deal with it, or even send someone else to go deal with it. But you can see I've tried to load up the desk with things that would make sense being there, such as the radio for him to alert other policemen, or the handcuffs and the case files and whatnot. And there's even some filing cabinets in the back as a place to store more cases and reports. And now moving on to the right, you can see this is where a lot of the lower ranking policemen or even the deputy would get their work done. And in here I've tried to give each desk a style of its own. So you can see maybe on this one, this guy's always in a rush, or maybe he's a drinker, and that's why the beer and the stopwatch is there. And then moving on to the left, maybe this guy's a bit more childish, so that's why he's still got some toys there. And there's also some other cool things thrown around like a safe and a Nuka-Cola Quantum, since everybody loves those. And I've also tried to decorate up the walls in each little workspace, because you often see in workplaces that people have their little area or cubicle kind of decorated up to fit their style. And moving on to the other side of the build, you can see this is where all of the prisoners are stored, and there's also some other decorations off to the left hand side, and this is just here to make, I guess, visits a bit more pleasant. You can see there's some coffee and whatnot. And then I guess since the prisoners wouldn't be allowed to bring all their belongings in there, especially a weapon, we have these lockers here off to the other side, just so they can store their goods somewhere that's a bit more private, or at least locked away. And you can see, even in the cell, I tried to add quite a few decorations. On the ground here you can see there's a board game, and since I'm assuming the pieces would eventually all be stolen, The inmates here have had to resort to using bottle caps as replacements. And then off to the right hand side we have stuff like a bed and even a heater just to keep the inmates warm and whatnot. Now before we move on and check out the upstairs, we'll go ahead and take a look at the restricted area. And no, this is not a bathroom, nor is it a tool shed. No, these tools are not meant for building, unless you are talking about building a bad relationship. Yes, this, my friends, is a interrogation room. And I gotta admit, my favorite weapon here is probably the boxing glove. It just seems a bit out of place compared to all those other menacing weapons. But you can tell someone's been beaten so badly that it caused the chair to break behind him. I mean, they're even using dumbbells to beat the information out of people with. But besides that, we have a few more tools in the back, and there's also some drugs that I'm sure have been collected over time from some of the inmates. Now, moving on to the upstairs, this is where things start to get quite a bit more friendly. And this initial area here is basically meant for people to relax or maybe take a break and just interact with other officers and whatnot. You can see this spot to the left is where I guess a group of them could come and talk. And there's also a single chair over to the right, just in case someone wanted some peace and quiet and wanted to keep to their own thoughts. And although we didn't have room for any kind of huge armory, I felt like at least placing in some ammo boxes and some weapon lockers was kind of a necessity. Last but not least, we'll go ahead and check out the sheriff's room. And this is probably my favorite room out of the whole build. You can see it's really filled to the brim with decorations and details. Off to the left-hand side here, you have a lot of storage and just areas to store cases or even post them up on the wall. And over to the right, you have his desk. And you can tell this guy's a real patriot because he's got that flag over to the right. And there's also those posters to the left, which I think is cool because even though he's not here at the moment and you can't really talk to him or figure out anything about him, even just seeing some of this stuff could tell you a little bit about who he was. Anyways guys, that's gonna do it for today, so hopefully you enjoyed the build. Once again, I want to thank you guys for all the support you've been showing on this series. I really do enjoy making these builds and hopefully you guys like watching them just as much. But please feel free to let me know any suggestions you have for, I guess, improving this build or even ideas for future builds, because those always help me out. And yeah, like I said guys, that's gonna do it for today, so thanks again for watching, and like always, I will see you in the next one.